Good now.
We good?
Yeah.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to this episode of the Hot Seat. You guys can go ahead and accept the tags and share it on your pages. Good
Well,
evening,
it's in their
everybody.
it's in their notifications, not the tag. It's in their notifications probably.
Yeah, the tag.
Okay.
Yeah. Good evening, everybody. All right, everybody set? We all good?
We good.
All right. Awesome. All right, let me pull up the narrative and then we're gonna get started.
No, I forgot to ask you. The coffee is it public?
Yeah, it's public.
Okay.
Yeah, it's public. I just double checked to make sure. All right, good evening, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of The Hot Seat. We got some new faces in the building, but before we start introductions, we're going to go ahead and say our word of prayer. Tom Mitchell, would you do us the honors and lead us in a quick word of prayer for tonight, please?
Absolutely. Lord, thank you so much for tonight for us to come together in like-mindedness. God, allow us to just be able to collaborate and respect each other's opinions, answer questions, and let this bless somebody's perspective, marriage, and relationship. And we pray that this happens tonight in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. So good evening, everybody. Welcome. Super excited. We got some guests in the building, and this is about to go down. First off, we have somebody brand new who is first time with us. Well, we have two brand new people who are first time with us. We have Dr. Tiffany Williams in the building with us, and we have Mr. Chris in the building with us this evening. You guys go ahead, wave at the community, tell everybody, hey, what's going on? What's going on? Okay, you guys, super excited to have everybody on. Dr. Tiffany, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, where do I start? Okay, first, I'm Dr. Tiffany Williams. I am a native of Jacksonville, Florida. I am a licensed clinical social worker. I provide therapy services to individuals experiencing depression, anxiety, any mental health disorder, you name it, I treat it. I have my own private practice, Masterpiece Counseling Services. I have been in business for 1 year, so yay!
Congratulations.
And aside from that, I operate a nonprofit. I'm an author, a philanthropist. I love to travel, work out.
All right.
And the list goes on, right?
We'll stop right
Mr.
there.
Chris, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I've been in Jacksonville. I'm not a native, but I've been in Jacksonville for about 21 years now, and I met the love of my life here.
All right.
So I don't think I'm going to leave, but I'm a husband, a father, and been in sales for a very long time now, hoping to further my career inside.
Awesome. That's what's up. And we also have Jason Williams in the building. Jason is not new to this. He's true to this. Jason, welcome again, Jason. We got Dee Dee in the building. What's
Thank you.
up, Dee Dee? Dee Dee, how you doing? Hi, everybody. And of course, we have Ms. Tom Mitchell back in the building with us. Thank you for starting us off in prayer this evening. Welcome, lady. Appreciate you coming back on with us. Thank you so much. And we have our honored co-host, the Bishop of the Hour.
Oh, no.
Dr. Dixon. Dr. Dixon.
That was crazy.
How you doing, sir?
I'm pretty good. I'm hanging in there.
All right. Well, welcome. Truly appreciate everybody being on with us tonight. So we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to read the narrative real quick. Have you ever heard someone say, if it wasn't for you, I would not have slept with you, fill in the blanks? I call this the ownership of responsibility game, the guilt trip, or my favorite, the mindset of the master manipulator. We all know that no one can make us do anything that we don't want to do. Yet there's a flip side to this. A person could be in a relationship where there is no continuous connection. Example, emotional, physical, financial, or social, where there's constant confrontation in the home, and there's nagging of sorts, which can lead one to find solitude in the arms of somewhere else. This week's episode is called The Infidelity Push. Can your mate be the reason why you sleep with somebody else?
Okay.
All right. Okay. Well,
Okay.
well, I'm gonna tell you guys where this came from. I'm in school right now for communications and public speaking, and one of the major things that we have to do live video segments, and it has to be with various professors from all over the globe, and we have these dialogues, or we have these really conflicting conversations, and this was one of the topics that was on there about divorce and the effects that it has on society as a whole. And so they were asking the question about, hey, can your mate be legitimately the reason why you actually have a physical relationship with somebody else? And everybody's going back and forth. And so I finally said, you know what? I'm going to do a show about this. So this show will be actually sent to my class for them to review when we get done with it. So it's going to be really cool. Nonetheless, I was thinking to myself, I was like, now, this is a controversial topic in that a person can influence the behavior, but they can't force you to do it, if that makes sense. Right. So a person can be a participant, quote unquote, but they can't be the end all be all, say, oh, the reason why I did that is because you did this. Right. That's that infamous blame game that so many people do. So, Dr. Tiffany, we're going to baptize you, girl. You going first.
Okay.
Talk to us. What comes to mind when you think about the infidelity push?
What comes to mind off the top of my head is the personal responsibility. A lot of times we tend to shy away from personal responsibility when it comes to relationships, what we put into our relationships, what we take from our relationships. And when we are wronged, so let's just say this particular person is feeling like they're being pushed out the door. When we are wronged, we don't take the responsibility of, okay, what did I contribute to this push? And of course, at the end of the day, we don't tend to take responsibility for the fact that, I made a conscious decision to step outside my relationship. Right. So the main thing that I think about is personal responsibility. Taking ownership of your actions, whether they're good or bad. So if I stepped outside of the relationship, I need to take ownership of the fact that I stepped outside of the relationship. It doesn't matter, what took place or the reason why. Let's take that ownership.
Absolutely. Chris, you're going to get baptized next. Just get on in the water while it's stirred.
Okay.
I think that communication is huge in not knowing how to communicate, because I've been that person, not in this relationship, but I've been that person in the other relationship, especially when I was younger. I didn't know how to express myself. I didn't know how to choose other outlets. And it was like, yeah, it was your fault, So I think that the lack of communication, like you said, not knowing how to communicate, not knowing how to transfer your feelings and let the other person know, well, this is what's going on. Instead, you're taking it to a third party. I think that's what happened to me.
Wow. Tom Mitchell, go ahead and piggyback off of that.
I would say too, and I talk about this, there are like 10,000 steps before you even get to infidelity.
Absolutely.
Yes. There's the conversation, there is the next conversation, then there's the lunch, and then there's the dinner, then there's the happy hour, and then it's constant conversation, over and over again. So if you haven't nipped that, so you've made 1,000 conscious decisions before you even got to that point where you could have nipped that in the bud. So at some point in time, I feel like that's what I think about when I think about the infidelity push, is that you have so many ways of escape before it turns into trouble. you know what I mean,
Right.
before you
Right.
get to that point. Yeah.
Right. That's good you said that. Jason, go ahead and piggyback off that.
Um,
I think he's
the
freezing.
reason why I'm saying that is I believe we're all going to say the same thing. Am I freezing?
Yeah, you're freezing.
Yeah.
Can you?
You know, I think it's your Wi-Fi. It's probably your Wi. It's probably your.
Well, I wasn't on just now, but Clubhouse
Okay.
should be strong if I switch to it.
All right.
Okay, Jason, go ahead. Try again.
He's trying to fix it.
Oh, he's trying to fix it.
He's
Okay,
frozen.
Dee, go ahead and talk to us, D.
I think that piggybacking on what the young man said, communication. We don't know how to communicate with our significant others. A lot of us don't think that's a biggie. I think we need to work on it. I think people, the cheaters, male or female, usually are running away from problems and lack of communication with their partner. No one can force anyone to cheat. No one can make anyone cheat. Even if the cheatee is not doing their role or the role that they should really be playing in the relationship, they are not forcing the cheater to cheat. The cheater is running away from problems and their responsibility to, if it's a committed relationship, marriage or a committed relationship, they're running away from fixing or attempting to fix what they should and running to something that's easy, that looks better, that looks tangible, rather than staying and working on the relationship that they committed to.
Or even taking it a step further and working on themselves. You know what I mean? Like working on it. And I think that's kind of what it boils down to, is that you really are just kind of transferring that same energy from one relationship to another. And if you do get that person that you're cheating with full time, most likely you're going to run into the same issues that you ran into with the first relationship.
That is the worst decision to make, because because in your mind, if you get with the person that you cheated with, you're never going to be able to trust them because they cheated with you in the first place. So the breach of trust started before the relationship could even get a chance to healthily cultivate or develop. It's automatic that they're going to be always in the back of their head. Well, you stepped out on your mate with me, so why would I think that you're not going to step out, and find somebody? That's just like Tom Mitchell said. It's a ripple effect at that point that they end up going from pillow to post, bed to bed, and you start having a behavioral pattern that's detrimental to you, not even just from a natural perspective, but from a spiritual perspective. Correct. It starts to destroy your inner being, and it just manifests externally. That is that's a bad thing, D, to get with somebody that you cheated with. That's whew. That is a fire. That's like, what is it? Out of the fire pan. What is it?
Frying
Out of the
pan.
frying pan into the
out of the
frying pan into the fire. I mean, you literally
To the
are
furnace.
look, and Chad, Red, Meshach, and Abednego ain't gonna be on there in there.
They're not gonna save you. Hello.
You would not be coming out unscathed from that scenario. Mr. Dixon, you got those glasses on over there. Talk to us, Mr. Dixon.
Oh Lord. I mean, I feel as though what happens is, of course, no one can, push you, or like you're saying, or force you. But I do think some of the issues nudge on the deficiencies that are already within the relationship. Mm-hmm. And I think it certainly places you in a position to challenge your integrity. Where I think we fall to this is, we didn't mention this earlier, but people tend to default to self-preservation.
Yes.
And so people tend to say, I'm going to do this. This is, you know what, if you're not going to do this, that's okay. But I got this. I'll handle this. And when you say that, you're taking on a whirlwind of issues and trouble, because now you're open to do whatever to please yourself by any means. And so
Right.
that right there can become super destructive. And this can, like, it can, like you say, it'll be like a wake in your path of just destruction just by being irresponsibly minded like that.
Absolutely.
And
Jason,
I
go
have to
ahead and
play
get in
devil's
real quick.
advocate though, because it may not always necessarily be destruction. Now, I'm glad that you tapped into the self-preservation thing because,
Right.
well, in the therapy world, we talk about Maslow's hierarchy of need, and
Right.
we all need our basic
Right.
needs met, and
Right.
so
Right.
we tend to go towards where the need needs to be met.
Correct.
And sometimes in relationships, we're not necessarily running towards destruction. We're
Hmm.
running away from destruction.
Right.
And in self-preservation mode, yeah, I'm going to run to something that appears more safe,
Yeah.
looks more safe, feels more safe, and
Right.
sometimes that may be in another person's arms.
Right.
Not saying that it's right.
Right.
Um, but I just want to play the devil's advocate on that, and that when we're talking
Okay.
about self-preservation here,
Well,
we
and,
may
and,
be
and
running on to a safer
right.
space.
And what I was meaning by destruction, when I was meaning it, I was meaning it in the case. Now, don't get me wrong. It's wrong whether you're in a relationship or a marriage.
Right.
But in a marriage, obviously, it's more devastating. Like if
Right.
you
Right.
if you veer off within the marriage and you go off and you start doing this, and even if the grass may seem green and the person is nice, at the end of the day, once your partner becomes aware of this, the damage begins. And now
Right.
and then you don't know, then you can't control what the other person's going to do. You don't know what
Right.
their kickback to you leaving them alone is going to be. So it's a lot into it. Yeah.
Mhm.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Jason, go ahead. Let's see if you're up and running now, Jason.
I sure hope so. But you guys kind of hit on what I was getting ready to go to. Is basically the fact that a lot of times there are things that people can find missing in another person because we don't create a safe place for our spouse. We don't, or significant other. We don't create a safe place for someone to feel comfortable to say it. And because you have to get this safe place to have a good conversation, or like the brother said earlier, or create an atmosphere of real communication. Now I have to find communication. I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to somebody.
Yeah, that's true.
And if that somebody happens to be someone of the opposite sex that seems to listen and give me an ear, a lot of times they start innocent. I was upset. Somebody was willing to talk, and that conversation, like I said earlier, led to a bunch of bad choices after
Jason,
that.
you still coming?
But the
You still
reality
coming
is
in
a
and
lot of
out,
times,
Jason. Jason, you still coming in and out real
am
bad.
I?
Yeah.
What is it today? I'm changing positions and everything. I don't know what it is.
Try to log out and come back in, Jason. Maybe if you log out and come back in,
All right.
it may clear out.
All right.
Try to log out and come back in. Okay. Sorry about that, guys. He was having some technical difficulties. I couldn't even. I mean, what he was saying was great, but I couldn't hear him. But that's the thing. I was hearing something that you were talking about with the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I think a lot of us don't really. This is a word that Charles don't like, y'all. Just for the record. Don't
Please say it.
He don't like that. He don't like the NEED word. Nonetheless, as a human, there are certain things that we have to have in order to be nurtured properly. The psychiatrist, his name escapes me. Tiffany, you probably know who he is. Skinner, B.F. Skinner. He did that study with his son, and he left one of his children inside of a playpen for like 6 months without any human interaction. When I studied psychology, I was like, what the heck? And he gave his other son all of the affection and all of the attention. And throughout the course of the child's life that he denied human contact and affection, he suffered from the time, like years. Studies show that he suffered for many, many years as a result of his family not giving him the human interaction and connection. Now, they fed him, they gave him the base, I'm talking about the bare minimals. But then what he did was he evolved it and he started using mice. That's where the concept of putting mice into science really came into being. What he would do was he would put rewards for certain behaviors that the mice would do, and they would do whatever they had to do to be rewarded. And so
Mm.
that's where the hierarchy of needs started to evolve and develop from that study from B.F. Skinner. And then when Maslow came in, he really broke it down to tell you that there were certain things and certain pillars that we all have as human beings that we cannot function or deviate from. I was just thinking, and so Mitchell, come back with me after I finish this. I was thinking to myself as a woman, and I've been married before. One of the main things that a woman needs is a man's energy in her ears. That's a need. That's not a want. That's a need. That's an innate need in a relationship. When that leaves, or when it gets lacking, or it gets lower and it's inconsistent, what goes on in our minds? So
Mm-hmm.
Mitchell, what goes on in our head?
I think I mean, I don't know if I've really experienced that with us for the most part, but I will say what goes on within our minds is that because we do need that affirmation and we do need the validation from our husbands, and we do need to feel like we're protected. You know what I mean? And
Mm-hmm.
so when that's not happening, and when we're not, when that emotional intelligence with our mates are kind of in and out, we do start to wonder, well, is it somebody else, or
Yes.
like,
Right.
do you
Right.
love? I mean, am I not attractive anymore? Like, we
Right.
immediately think
Right.
it's us, and I think it goes back to what Chris said about the communication, is that we don't want to talk about it. We don't want to say, well, I really feel like this. You
Mm-hmm.
know what I mean? And we depend on our spouses to make us feel a certain way when we really shouldn't be doing that. But that's a
Right.
whole
That's a whole
nother,
nother
Yeah.
show.
Whole nother
that's a
show.
whole nother show.
That's round
That's a
two.
whole nother show. But yeah, I mean, but I really, yeah, we start to wonder. We're like, wait a minute. If there's a break in that, we
Right.
do,
Right.
we do wonder.
And I think that a lot of times when we go to a man and say, hey, I feel neglected by you because we haven't been communicating consistently, you haven't been talking to me as much as you used to, and things like that. Sometimes men have a tendency to push us away and say, well, I've been busy. I've been doing this and that, fizz, and not really realizing that's a cry for the
For help.
intimacy
Yes.
to take place, and that need to be taken care of with your person. So when
Yes.
that person comes to you, Charles, what's going on in you guys' minds when your girl comes to you and says, hey babe, I feel neglected by you, the phone hasn't rang with your name on it, I haven't, we
Mm-hmm.
haven't talked, fizz. What goes on in your mind outside of thinking, oh my gosh, we should be fussing again? Because I know a lot of
Yeah.
times that's the main thing you guys say. It's unfortunate. It's truthfully,
Well,
it's really
here,
unfortunate.
here,
But it's
here's
true.
here's what comes to my mind. So
Mhm.
when you think about little babies, right? A lot of times we hear them over there fussing in the crib or what
Wait
have
a
you.
minute, hold on.
No, I'm gonna make a point.
It's
We go over
comparison.
there.
I'm
We
I'm
go over there
I'm
to the
I'm waiting to see where
crib.
this gonna go.
We
Yeah,
go over
Hey,
there
hey,
to the
don't worry,
crib.
Charles.
I'm like this.
I got your back.
Little
Okay.
baby.
Appreciate
What?
that, bro. Look, we go over there to the crib, pick the baby up, be like, what you crying for? Only to realize the babies wet themselves, right? Now, the thing is this, they don't know any better. They small, they're young, they don't know. So the point I am making in the
Oh,
modern day term
Hurry
oh
of
my
up.
grown
help us,
folks
Lord.
is this. Sometimes before you cry, look down and check yourself first. Then reach out. Because it could just be an issue of you wet yourself. Check yourself first before you go throwing all of that on. Because you all don't understand, as much as we love the woman, the female species, it's a lot of pressure when you throw your issues, your imbalances, your deficiencies on us. And you projecting this on us because you could have a whole other set of things going on in your world. But because we the man today and we're supposed to be the buffer and the strong man, you take it all. And so sometimes I get it. It's warranted and it's definitely needed for us to walk around with our pitcher of water to water the flowers. But
Oh
in
my God.
some cases we are listening to dysfunctional cries. They're not all legitimate cries in some cases. That's
And
all
you
I'm
know
But
what?
I
And
was
that
Charles,
goes for men
we
too
weren't really
now.
going.
Yeah, yeah, no, I
Charles,
know. Yeah.
we were keeping this at a superficial level. You went
That's
way
okay.
over to the left
That's it.
field
We're
somewhere.
going off.
I
Yeah.
would
We
say,
talking about babies and wet diapers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Right.
yeah,
Talking
that's
about
it.
What is
That's
check
going
your look,
on?
look, and in the grown up world, you looking like, let me check my depends. No,
That's it
I'm trying to see
depends.
if my
Well, I'm telling
depends,
you.
you know.
Oh,
No, Charles, we're talking about just from here. Here's the thing. This is
all
where
right.
this comes from, Charles. Let me help you help yourself, honey.
You need to look down at yourself, Charles.
This what I'm talking about comes from the comfort level in the relationship, not
Okay.
from
yeah,
dysfunction, not
No,
from
I
yes,
understand. I
yes.
understand.
it comes from the man becoming comfortable,
Yeah.
if that makes sense. And
And
so
I
when a
was
woman
going to say,
comes
know
and
your
she brings to
partner.
his awareness, it's not saying that she has some kind of defect somewhere else. She's bringing it to your attention because you've
Yes.
gotten comfortable.
Right.
Go ahead, D. Go ahead, D.
I was going to say when he was saying that, sometimes that comes from dysfunction from certain
Yeah, it
women
does.
or
Yeah, for
certain
sure.
men.
Yeah.
But what I would say to that, know your partner.
Correct.
And if you know your partner as a man and you know she's not a nag,
Yeah.
she's not somebody that has to have your attention all the time, she's not always on your back, she's not a
Right.
nag, not,
Right.
and when she comes to you with the
Yeah.
legitimate cry,
Yeah.
hey babe, you're distant, what's
Right.
going on? I do think men need to stop and say, this woman isn't a cry wolf kind of woman.
Right.
You know,
No, absolutely. You're right. That's a good point. You got to kind of know her temperament. You're right. You got to know her temperament.
Absolutely.
But I
And
think
because
Absolutely.
and I think if most men will be honest, it becomes a time where we don't get me wrong, we always want to be Superman and show up with our cape and fix and do what we need to do. However, there are some needs, right? This has always been an issue for me. There is always the needs of a person. Okay, that's just the basic things that people need to flourish and live. And then there are the cases where some people are too needy. What do you do? Like you'll be attending to them all day, every day. You can't work
I agree.
because they got too many problems. So what do you do in those situations? You know?
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? And then too, here's another factor that we haven't talked about: personality types.
Right.
Sometimes people are just a personality mismatch because
Correct. I agree.
where something can be deemed as nagging to one, it's accepted to another.
Yes.
So
Correct.
a lot of times we have to consider the personality of the person that we're dealing with and their
Right.
emotional intelligence, because everybody's not on the same level when it comes to emotional intelligence. And so
You're
that's
right.
not something that we talk about in our community, unfortunately. But there's
Yeah.
a book out, you guys can pick up in our viewing audience. It's called Emotional Intelligence. It talks about our not understanding how to connect with other humans on a level to where they feel appreciated, loved, embraced, engaged, and things like that. I think sometimes we get too common with our person, and then we forget that these things are just a part of emotional intelligence. It's not about them
Right.
being extra needy or having a defect or this, that, and the
Right.
third. It's just about our capacity and how much we're able to feel as far as
Right.
our ability to deal with this particular person. Sometimes it's just a matter of it being a mismatch and the two of you are just not compatible, which is a
Yes.
hope to be found before a marriage takes place. And
Right.
unfortunately, a lot of times this information is not found out until after people say I do. And that's
Yes.
where the danger comes in, because there's not that time of getting to know a person so in depth that you say, you know what, I like you, I care about you, I think you're incredible, but here's the deal. There's too many cons and not enough pros for us to keep going together. So a lot
Yes.
of times that's where the problem lies, is that there's the incompatibility factor going on.
Right.
Chris, talk to us, Chris. Talk to us, Chris. I know you want to defend Charles. Go ahead, Chris.
Go ahead.
no, everything you just said was spot on. I mean, that's actually what I wanted to say. Because I came into this relationship, and I grew up with my parents, watching them, and they're old school. And I'm thinking I got it made. Oh, I can do this. Oh, I'm the man, and I got it all together, right?
Right.
So we go to our couples ministry at Bethel, and and Bishop comes out talking about these things that men shouldn't be doing. I'm like, wait a minute, hold up, Bishop.
Like,
So
watch out, McKissick. Watch out, McKissick.
right. So I have to now look at myself and say, okay, you know what? I come with a bag full of mess.
Right.
And
right.
I'm asking her to accept it, but I don't want to accept her stuff. So
Come on now.
Yeah, let me just kind of open up and listen a little bit more, and kind of like stop trying to resolve the issue all the time and just listen to what she's saying. And sometimes I don't. I mean, sometimes, yeah, I am thinking about something else, or I got something else on my mind, or the kids, or whatever it is. But, like you said, for the most part, she's not a nagger. I'm probably nag more than she does. But,
right.
I open up because of past issues I've had, and I communicate more. I want her to know what's on my mind. Listen, you took too much toilet paper off the roll. I need, I want her to know.
Scott in the building. Come on now.
Yeah. So I think
some extra Scott for y'all. Send me your address.
the double roll.
Right.
But I mean, it's just knowing your mate. We became such good friends in the very beginning of our relationship that it was like, wow, I don't want to let this go. And I know that these are the things I can actually deal with this woman.
Right.
And she accepted my life as well. So I think that's what made us come together and even work harder at relationships. So I do talk to her. So there's no, oh God, she ain't talking to me this week, because she has a busy week. She's a realtor. She does her own thing. And sometimes I don't have her to talk to.
Right.
I don't want to go talk to another person.
Right.
So I wait.
Right.
I get over myself, basically.
And see, that's a strong discipline, what you just said. And I'm glad you brought that up. You said, I wait.
That's
And
awesome.
so that's a part of where the infidelity push comes in, because some people, again, back to emotional intelligence, they don't have the capacity to wait. So when they start getting all extra in their feelings instead of taking it to their person, which here's another thing too. We just have to be willing, like you said, Chris, to be the vessel that our person can turn to. We do not want them finding another ear to give this information to, because the minute that other ear is there, and like Dee said earlier, nobody can make you cheat, but I can tell you somebody can influence you into the behavior by the lack. When you talk about that child that I was talking about B.F. Skinner's son, you think about that child being not being nurtured properly and starving to death of affection, emotional affection coming from the relationship. Sometimes, and a lot of times, what people don't realize is, for a woman, we don't necessarily have to do physical. If you tie into that emotional piece of who we are, you got our undivided attention. We're not going nowhere. Truth be told, if you tap into that, everything else that you are looking for that woman to keep encompass for your entrance only, you'll be fine. She won't be thinking about nobody else, because she's receiving what she needs to receive from her mate. Dr. Tiffany, talk to us.
Oh, that was a lot. I'm not sure where to go. Other than to say that we were talking earlier about the emotional intelligence and needing to, or not being able to wait.
Right.
I think another part of that too is when we get into relationships, we see the red flags. We see the incompatibility.
Right.
And we try to force it, or we settle, or we think that we can change the person. And so what we end up doing is, one, devaluing ourselves, right? Because this is not something I really want to sign up for.
Right.
But then we put a person in a position to give something that they're not either willing to give or able to give. Right?
That's good stuff. When you say able, elaborate on the able to give.
In other words, so we're talking about emotional intelligence. We're talking about all that. I know I love the book, The 5 Love Languages. So they talk about the different love languages that people, embody or have, or how they like to be loved and how they show love. And so if I am a gifts person, right? I love giving gifts. I love receiving gifts. It may be very difficult for me to, show my love or appreciation for a person who loves to receive physical touch. And so that's what I mean by the capability. Now, I'm not saying that a person who is a gift giver, that's how they show their love, that they can't transition to that. You can learn. You can learn to be a physical touch person, especially if you're an intimate person. But if it's just completely not in them, or if you're dealing with a sociopath, you're not going to get it. You're not going to get it.
Now, when you say sociopath, considering your degree, elaborate on what that means. Because a lot of people don't really understand what a sociopath really is.
Yes. So a sociopath is a person whose behaviors are basically based off of what they can get out of the situation. So in a relationship, a sociopath may come off as very charming and nurturing and loving in the beginning, but of course, it eventually falls off because they can't keep up with it. They use manipulation as a tool to gain something out of a person. So again, this a sociopath in their very nature cannot be reciprocal. They cannot give love and receive love because everything is about manipulation and gain. Honestly, the person that they're in a relationship with, they're only a tool. They're just a tool to be used. So they're incapable of giving love, affection.
Wow.
A normal person would be able to, expect. So yeah, I'm going to try to expect something out of this person who, by their very nature, cannot give love or affection.
And they can masquerade as though they're capable and competent for an extended period of time before they actually escalate back to who they really are. Well, some of the masterminds, some of the master sociopaths, they've been working at it for a while. They can play it out for a little while longer. They can record a little longer. So, Mitchell, talk to us. Talk to us about the component of what would cause a person to get to that place. You mentioned earlier about the 1,000 steps that it takes to get there. Elaborate more for us on what those steps actually look like, the person that's exiting and the person that's there with them in that process.
I think what it looks like is that you could have a person that is actually communicating how they feel over and over again to their mate. You could have that. And you could have a situation where when a woman or a man just stops talking about it, when there's like a whole war going on inside because they've tried to talk to the person, they've tried to work it out, they've made their feelings known, and no change has been made. And so I think a lot of times that is born out of frustration. Then it starts with the subliminal post on Facebook.
Right.
It starts with, one man's trash is another man's treasure. It all starts there. And then it starts with a like, or what's going on, baby girl? Why you feel that way? Blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And then it just kind of snowballs into that. So I think where it starts, to kind of answer your question, especially from a person that really wants to work out their relationship and they have tried, if they're being discounted every single time that they come to their mate with their issues, you become numb. And then it's like, you know what? What's the point?
Yeah,
What's the
absolutely.
point? You know what I mean? And I know in my mind, I've always been boggled as to why do people step out instead of just leaving that relationship and then starting something.
Right.
But that's just me personally, but I know there's a lot of variables.
People don't like to lose things.
Yeah.
They
There
don't
you
like
go.
to
There you go. There you go. That disconnect and the possibility of the other person is what keeps them plugged in. Because there's only a possibility of the other person. It's not a fact. So if they have said person, this person got this, they're not contributing to their well-being emotionally, whatever the case may be, but somebody else is stimulating that particular area, They're like, you know what? Why can't I have my cake and eat it too? It's called the
Right.
selfish
Correct.
syndrome. It's the selfish syndrome to where they don't care about who they hurt behind all of this because it becomes chaos and convoluted and it can
And
turn into all kinds
I
of
was
foolery. I have a friend right
thinking
now
about
who
the
is pregnant by
selfishness
somebody's husband. I have a friend right now who's pregnant by somebody's husband
Mm.
because
of
of the same kind of dysfunctionality. And so,
Wow.
and she was like, I can't kill the child because of her spiritual beliefs, but at the same time, she, her this is what boggled me down. I said, so your spirit didn't stop you from screwing somebody's husband.
Hello.
I mean, I said, so I don't understand your spirit ministries.
right.
Which one is that?
I'm like,
Right.
is it a dual spirit where it work on the weekends? I'm just trying to I
Mm,
mean, and I wasn't being funny,
no
but
comment.
I told her straight up. I said, this is right here is dysfunctionality at its finest.
Mm.
So she was like, well, we're not going to tell his wife. And I said, let me tell you something. Let me explain something to you about a marriage. I said, his wife is not oblivious to your existence, sweetie.
Come
You may
on, somebody.
you may
She
think
knows.
that she's oblivious, but she knows you exist, baby. Don't get it
Yeah.
twisted. Honey. She
Mm.
knows. Now, to
I
what
want to go back
extent?
to the
To what
selfishness
extent?
part.
It may be different, but she knows that you exist. Believe me, she knows. Go ahead, D.
Want to say
Go
something?
ahead, D.
I just
Oh.
D
want
and
to
then
touch
Chris. D and then
on
Chris.
the selfishness part. I think all of us are selfish. We're born selfish to a
Yes.
certain extent. As we grow and grow up, we should grow less and less selfish. When we're married or have a partner, and I'm big, Dr. Williams, on the 5 love languages.
Yes.
I'm all over that. I love that. But we're all selfish in nature. But when we get married or decide to be monogamous with someone, that is the time that we need to talk. This is great. We need to have a revolution, a relationship revolution, where people are taught that you need to lose the selfishness and be selfless when you commit to a
Right.
relationship.
Right. Right.
I think that there's 2 kind of cheaters. Well, there's all kinds of cheaters, but most fall into 2 categories. I think there's people, men and women, that are going to cheat no matter what. They could have
Right.
the best spouse, the best
Right.
mate.
Right.
They're just going to cheat because that's
Right.
what they like
Yeah.
to do. That's what they want to do.
Yeah.
But I think more what we're talking about is those that cheat. They're not forced to cheat. They're not made to cheat, but they cheat because they're lacking something.
Yeah.
They feel unappreciated. They feel unloved. They feel unheard.
Right.
Maybe they feel like they're not getting enough intimacy. They're lacking. And instead of, I'm big on when you're married, you're one, you become one.
Mhm.
So when you cheat on your spouse, you're doing that to yourself. And I don't
Right.
think
Yes.
we're taught that
Right.
enough.
Right.
Not
Mm.
in
That's a good
church,
one.
not in
Right.
real life,
Right.
I don't think we're taught. You are one. When you're cheating on your spouse, male
Right.
or female, man or woman, whatever you are, you're doing that to yourself.
Mm.
Right.
That's
Absolutely.
That's
That's
Mhm.
good stuff.
very
Chris,
good.
Indeed.
Chris, go ahead. You wanted to say something, Chris?
And I thought about some other things too, as far as like when you cheat on your spouse. The things people don't think about are how disrespectful the other person is that you're cheating with, especially when you're married.
Absolutely.
Mm.
They're willing to mess up your home.
Absolutely.
They don't
Yeah.
really care about you like they say they do.
Right.
They don't care about your kids. They don't care about your situation. They don't care. Now, first off, you don't care, but they don't care either. And nobody
Right.
thinks about, well, dang, if this person's willing to do this, how much could they actually care for me? And how much could they actually care about my kids and love my kids if they don't love the situation I'm in and respect it and say, you know what, I'm just going to stay away from this person. That's the thing.
I got a twist for you, though. I got a twist for you. What
Yeah.
about the infidelity push where it's 2 married people involved?
Same
They
thing.
just don't care.
That
You
happens
know-
more. That happens more
It
so
does
than
happen
not.
more.
It happens
But
more
you know
so than
what
not.
though? I think him and I had a discussion about that because you don't want somebody that ain't got nothing to lose. So if you got,
There
Right.
you go. Come on now.
I'm
Yes.
just saying,
Yeah.
if you got somebody, because Chris always says this, he's like, look, you don't know who you cheating with. Somebody could be
Absolutely.
crazy. They could be,
Absolutely.
have some type of, mental disorder where they showing up at your house. You
Right.
heard about the lady that shot and killed the pastor,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
the
Yes.
wife.
And
I'm just saying.
drove several
Wow.
cities to get there.
Yes, yes.
Mm.
So that just makes a point, is that, like you said, is people, if you cheating with another married person, they all of y'all got something to lose. So the
Right.
likelihood of somebody saying something, it may be a lot lower than when you got somebody that's just sitting at home by themselves
Yeah.
waiting on you to call after their wife go
Yeah.
to sleep.
Absolutely. You're
So
so right.
But
Dr.
you got
Williams, go
you
ahead and
guys.
talk to
Oh,
us,
but I'm
Dr.
sorry. Go
Williams.
ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Go. You want to say something, Charles?
No, I was going to say you still have some, even in those scenarios of married folks, you can never discount the power of emotion. And married or not, you got some people. I knew somebody who was married. They were both in the same scenario. They were cheating, but the woman was so emotional. She had a nerve to go knock on their door, and she got a husband at home in the bed. You didn't come to the hotel. You got a husband, but
Are
you
you
both
kidding
your
me?
emotions. You lost control of your emotions. So you're
that's
gonna
it.
go knock. You're gonna have the audacity to break the agreement and go
They know
knock
who
on
you
his
cheating with.
door and say you didn't come to the hotel.
They know who you cheating with.
So that's what I mean when I say
Crazy.
you can't count on that. And then in the situation where Chris spoke of about when he said, she don't probably the person don't care about my situation. I heard a young lady say, I've heard her say in conversation when we had a conversation about dealing with people that are married or whatever, and she said, I don't worry about that. He made the commitment to her, not me.
Yes.
That's true.
That's
Right.
I've heard
how you
that.
look at it. Yeah, that's
First.
how you
You know
look at it.
what? That brings me to the
Yeah.
movie that when you said that about the emotional thing where Sanaa Lathan was having an
Right,
affair with that
right,
Caucasian guy, the family that
right.
prays.
Oh, the family
Yeah,
that prays.
Remember when she
yeah,
had the child with him and all that kind of stuff, but it was both of them were married and she got
yeah,
so inundated
yeah.
with
Because
him and she was like,
Yes.
he's gonna marry me. I'm gonna divorce my husband. He gonna leave his wife and we gonna get married.
right,
She was
right.
like
Yep.
totally gone left with it. He told her, he said, are you serious? You think I'm gonna take you to the company parties? You think I'm gonna be living in public with you?
Right. He didn't leave his wife.
No.
And when
You
I
sure
tell you,
did.
he gave her that same room that his dad cheated on his mama with
Right.
years
Right,
prior, and all
right.
she got was that week stand on Wednesday at lunchtime. She got nothing.
Right.
She got a Wednesday lunch ministry meeting.
Wow, wow.
12 to 1, baby. 12 to 1. Dr. Williams, talk to us about this. Can somebody really push you to sleep with somebody else?
I would have to go back to what I stated when we opened up, and that is, you have to take personal responsibility. I
That's it.
really do not believe anybody can push you. Yes, you
Yeah,
can be dismissed, invalidated. Yes, there may be needs that might not be met in the relationship, but that's when you take that stand to say, am I going to deal with it or am I not?
Right.
And
Absolutely.
everyone has
yeah,
the right,
yeah.
the
Yes.
absolute right to say what they are going to deal with or not deal with.
You're right.
Right.
Yes.
What
At any moment, you can
Right.
say,
Right.
I'm out.
Right.
and
No, it's not always that easy, but
Right.
yeah.
still, we have to go back to personal responsibility.
Right.
You know what I
Yes.
think, Doctor, on that note, I think what we can do when she said, I agree. I don't think anyone can push you.
Hmm.
However, I think what can happen is in an indirect way, what's really happening is no one's really pushing you. Your pilot light is being lit in you.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
That's characteristic to stray is being reawakened in
Yeah.
you because it's
Yeah.
telling you instead of dealing with the problem head on, you take the prideful stance of you think you're gonna just make me malnourished. I know how to settle this. You're gonna take matters in your own hands and go do you. So that's saying that's something that's continually lying dormant within you. Doesn't
Correct.
mean yeah, you might be mad and you're not getting something done, but there are ways, and like Doctor said, you can say, hey, this doesn't work for me.
Mhm.
Therefore, after you sever that, whatever you do is up to you. But while
Right.
you're in it, you're reenacting something that's already inside of you. Yeah.
I mean, it's a character defect. It really is. It's a character defect. It's a character defect. And like Tamisha was talking about earlier, when you were saying, I never could understand why people, resort to that. It's a character flaw. It's a lack of integrity. It's a lack of maturity. It's a lack of emotional intelligence on the person that's cheating part.
Right.
And
maybe it also may just be what it is that we've learned. A lot of the things that we
you
bring
said that earlier about resorting to comfort, safety,
right.
And so that could be very well it, where somebody just feels that solitude and sanctity elsewhere.
Right.
They really don't know how to cope. And another thing that I thought about was like having ineffective coping skills.
Yeah.
That could play a major part in it. Just not having the ability to cope with whatever that looks like. And another thing, Dr. Williams, I wanted you to elaborate on as we kind of like start heading towards the end of the segment. Whenever you said how you were talking about the freedom to exit, what if a person doesn't really have an exit strategy or the capacity or ability to exit? What would you recommend that they do if they can't get out of the situation that they found themselves in?
Now you know what I'm about to say.
We're doing anyway.
Counseling, seek counsel. I mean, and it doesn't have to necessarily be from a therapist. I mean, you can seek counsel from your pastor, or singles ministry leaders. They have, obviously they're in that place to share in the experience and how to either cope or provide other ways or means of dealing with that particular situation. But seek counsel, and a lot of times we don't seek counsel because we're fearful, we're embarrassed, or we feel like we can handle it. But I would definitely say seek counsel.
I have a question.
Go ahead on, Chris. Ask away.
Yes.
I would, while we're talking about this topic, I just wonder, I thought about the fact that whenever people talk at the end of fidelity or what have you, why is somebody always owning it? Somebody, I caused this. Or I made you do it. Why do people always own up?
Right. Yeah. Right.
I mean, I think sometimes that people, but there's kind of like, in some situations, there's a narcissism thing behind it, like, oh, I did this.
There you go.
I'm so sorry. It's all my fault, blah, blah, blah. But all you're doing is treating your symptom or just covering up. You're really not getting to the root as to why you did this.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I think that goes back. Yeah, you can say you own it, but people say that all the time. And they truly are not owning it, or I made you do this or whatever, because that goes back to what Dr. Williams said. There's a sense of manipulation, I think narcissism, and a lot of things that go into play when you're dealing with a cheater. Yes, insecurity.
That's an insecure person saying something like that. I didn't make you do nothing, honey. That was your
I did not. Exactly. Right.
That's good though. That's good though, because there are some people who that person has. I put a post up early this morning about someone mastering someone by manipulation.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And like, they literally have gotten so far into your psyche, they make you feel like you're the reason why.
Gaslighting.
And so it's like reverse psychology at its finest. I mean,
gaslighting.
Gaslighting. Absolutely, honey. Light a flame on you, honey. Oh, and burn you up. Okay, burn you up. Watch you burn on top of that. Oh my God.
You know what? But to have that kind of leverage, you would have to put in that kind of time. And a lot of times, if you already at a place where you feeling this deficit, likely there's not a lot of time. So I guess it's kind of flip flopping on that one. Because I mean, most cases for a man to get to a woman.
And then depends on how deeply you've been penetrated by that person. It don't have to be a long time, Charles, for that person to be.
But I'm just saying, because I said on one of my shows before, women are rewarders, and the woman giving you that type of loyalty is a reward. So you had to work to a degree to something to get that from her. Other than that, she's gonna
think so?
Of course, she's gonna listen to you. We're not talking about listening to you. Might be talking. Hey, Coffee, I think you're talking about penetration other ways, but I'm talking about.
I ain't talking about no penile penetration. Ain't nobody talking about no penile.
I don't think that's what she
I'm
meant.
talking
Now.
about
Child, I got
psychological
me
penetration, Charles. You gonna
clutching the
listen to
pearls over here.
You can't help yourself. He could not help himself.
So Mitchell, we gonna have an altar call. We gonna call Bishop McKissick and get some millions on Charles. See if that help him out.
Yeah, no. I mean, you know what I've learned? I'll put myself on the block. What I've learned is at the end of the day, I'm speaking for me as a man, it comes down to whether you care, you don't care. You value, you don't value.
I think that's it.
Is she relevant or is she irrelevant? I say that because if these things hold true to the positive, then in most cases, if you're honest with yourself, you are sitting there holding the water over the flowers at all times. If not, the water is over there still out of fence. You moving around, it's just a neglectful mess, and that comes from us not being honest and simply saying, "Look, do I really care? Because if I really care, I know how to tend to this.
Right.
Do I really care, or not?" And you got to be honest with yourself to say that. And that takes a big person to get to that point to really own, like you say, own it. And it made me laugh when you say to own it, because to be honest, when I've heard people say own it before, and I've even used it in this way, if I've ever said I'm gonna own it, I really want to say just shut up, we over the conversation. That's cool. I own it. Just leave it alone. But that's it's fun.
And see, that's narcissism at its finest. But go ahead, tell Mitchell.
Right. Well, what I was going to say was, to your point, Charles, is that you used a lot of good analogies, and one of the analogies that you've used actually a couple of times during this segment.
Except the diaper one, too, Mitchell. Except for that.
Yeah, don't bring up the diaper.
Put away diaper. But the watering of the flower, and what happens is, and this can lead to infidelity as well, is that you will have a man or a mate that is constantly watering the flower, and they take for granted that this flower is always going to be there. So now the water is by the fence, and they're not really paying attention, and they're not doing what they're supposed to do. And now that deficit has been created, and now somebody else is in their ear. So it can really, and that could go both ways, you know what I mean? Because in marriage, you do tend to take that person for granted as if they're not going anywhere.
And that's a good point. That's something that we have to check ourselves daily, because we can get so over inundated with our lives and different things. And if you and with yourself and this, that, and the other, and if you don't realize it, before you know it, you say, I haven't watered this flower in such and such time. And you have to get to your point to say, I need to make a concerted effort to do this consistently and intently, so that you can get the return on the investment that you desire as well. Because men, we tend to go with this feeling like we just got to water you all the time. We be dry too. So we're looking for that return. We're looking for that reciprocation as well. Because if we're just concentrating on our mind on just watering you, trust and believe, we tired, fatigue is set in, we wore out too. So at some point it needs to be like, like I said, a shift back around again,
Absolutely.
Let me go get my water pot out the yard and bring it down.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, that water pot, I'm telling you.
Y'all gonna go check on our plants.
Check on the plant. Make sure it's got watered and nurtured and everything, and all the little soil around it is just right. Okay.
But another thing is, what? I'm sorry.
Go ahead, D.
I think when we're considering these relationships and infidelity, like I said, the cheater that's just going to cheat, they're just going to do that. That's a whole nother issue, like the sociopath or whatever. That's a whole nother issue. But someone that's cheating because they're running away from problems, somehow we've got to get with our people like this and have them, instead of running away from the problems and the issues, run to the problems. And I know that's hard, but we've got to do it because it's so easy. And I'm going to tell y'all, I was listening to a song today by Carl Thomas, and it's called So Much Better. Just this song. It's called So Much Better. Right. And the gist of the song is about, what the gist of so many songs about are, I didn't appreciate you when I had you. I cheated on you, and you left me. And now that I'm by myself, I don't want the one that I cheated with. I don't even want her. Right. I don't want that person. So now I'm stuck. I don't have you. I don't want her. And I'm in a bad place. Why do we always, men and women, why do we find ourselves in that place? When we know the ones that we wanted, all we had to do is appreciate them and do what it takes to love them.
Put the water on it. Put the water on it, like Charles.
What's most important to you at that time? You know?
Yeah.
It's like what's most important to you? What do you hold value in? Like Charles was saying, you know,
right.
Do you when I met her, I can just say this, that I was single, very single. And I started talking to Mitchell, and she had my ear. You know, I was like, wow. The things she was saying was just like golden, and her value went up. And I think that I said, you know what? I don't want to deal with anyone else. You know, at that point, I was like, I don't want to deal with anyone else. I don't want to see anybody. I don't want to see anyone else. And I think that at that point, you know, people have to make a decision. What's most important? You know, what is, you know, look at what you value. Okay, so is it being out here in these streets, or is it sneaking around? You know, I'm playing the game. Let's see if I get caught. Oh, I did it this time. So let's see if I can do it again. You know, they might put weight on that. It might be a game to them. You know, so it's what you value the most. Is it your relationship, or is it what you can do with other things outside of your relationship?
Good stuff. That's good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, and
go ahead and bring the train into the station, Mr.
Oh,
It is after closing time. It's 9:05. It's 10:05
on
the East Coast, honey. People sleeping.
No, I was going to say, he brought up something maybe when you guys were talking about, I think Dee was talking about when they go out and like you said, and like on that song, on the Carl Thomas song, I think what people do is you have some people that just naturally they like starring in dramatic role movies, right? I mean, I'm just using that as an analogy. They
crying baby again.
And to be honest, some people do not enjoy the act unless they have a prop holding them. Some men aren't as confident as they can be unless they got the fine woman at home already. Now that makes my value in the street go up because they like, oh, he's married to her. Oh, he must be this kind of dude. So now the women are looking at him, and so now it makes it more convenient and easy for him to maneuver because he got the good woman that's good in his ear at home, but here's the lady in the street that he can kind of divvy some percentages of himself to him. Now here's the problem though. They're just percentages. They're not the whole thing. She's the whole thing. And so when you risk it and you step out for the percentages, now you turn around and now the wife is like, I have had enough. And when a man hears that, his whole world crumbles. He's like, wait a minute, I'm stuck with the percentages, and that's the risk of it. But that's what happens when you gamble like that. You go to Vegas and you come home broke. You lose the main prize, and sometimes you will lose a percentage because they only wanted you because you was added to them. Yeah, because you're not even married no more, so I don't want you either. So you're
right.
They only see the facade. You're right.
Correct.
Yeah. Charles, shut us down, please.
Okay, all right. So really quick, we're gonna start with the doctor. And so all we want, this is the kind of a thing that we do at the end of the show. We just kind of everybody leads off with their quick exit commercial as to encourage the folks on this particular topic. Just give them like a go out, something quick to kind of let them know, keep their heads up.
And all you do, make sure that you do it for self, take personal responsibility, and love you. That's all.
All right. Dee?
I just would like to say, for us humans, relationships are not easy. They're loving, they should be loving, but they're not easy. You're going to have to put in some work. You're going to have to decide, are you going to put in the work to save my relationship that I value, if you value it, or am I going to put in the work to run the streets? You just got to decide.
Because either way, you're going to work.
You got to decide,
either way,
like
you're going to work.
Like the Las Vegas thing, I may lose.
Right.
But you're going to put in the work. You're going to put in the work one way or the other.
There you go.
Right. Family, y'all can start for the ladies first.
So, Mitch,
I think that piggybacking off of what Dee said and what everybody else said, just being able to learn, knowing yourself first before you
Right.
drag somebody into your mess. Know yourself first. And if you really know that you are not ready to settle down or get in a relationship or even marriage, don't do it. Just save your step.
Be true to
Break
you.
that person's heart in the beginning, and don't break it 10 years down the line and they find out that you a dog. Either
Correct.
Correct.
Right. Don't be selfish. You know,
right.
that I think that is a selfish quality that some people have. You know, they just go for it anyway. Like you said, know yourself. You know what you want and know what you don't want. I think that's most important. Know what you don't want to deal with.
Right. Tea coffee?
Well, Dr. Dixon.
Oh, Lord.
I'll tell you what, to Mitchell and Chris, you know what? I just love y'all. Y'all gonna be my favorite couple for the week. I'm gonna post pictures of y'all on everything. But this is where I really appreciate the two of you coming on and talking about this topic. This is really powerful to actually have a couple talking about this type of topic.
Yeah, that was good.
Y'all are so transparent. So kudos to you guys. Thank you guys so much.
Yeah.
For tag team, and I know Tom Mitchell, you probably spanked them before and everything. But
hey, Chris, I know her hand on the table like this. It's all right, Chris. I know she had the knife.
She pinching me under the table, Charles.
Don't you say that, Chris. Hey, Charles. That's why they got off for a few seconds. She's like, you know what? I'm gonna cut.
You say that.
No. We back now, but I had to say something. We good. But no, seriously, I was thinking of something while we were talking throughout the course of the conversation, and what came to my mind was a book called "Who Moved My Cheese."
Oh, I remember.
Never read it, but
that book. And what came to my mind was Smith and Scurry, where they left their tennis shoes around their neck because they knew at some point that cheese would either get stale, molded, or they would have consumed it all. So they were always ready to move to the next thing. And so that's what I think about with relationships. Never get so comfortable that you're not ready to do what needs to be done to keep your relationship intact. So don't ever get comfortable. Keep your tennis shoes around your neck. You never know when your person is going to need you to step up. So that's what came to my mind when I thought about that. You guys, this has been incredible this evening. Mr. Dixon, you were going to say something. Go.
Yes, I was just going to say a last word. I would say, I mean, everybody said something invaluable, whatever, some invaluable things tonight. I would simply say one of the biggest reasons I think we even get into these situations where we are tempted and pushed and nudged, we are in the wrong positions. Be with people that you legitimately want to be with. That's the only way you're going to have a chance of somebody working with you. We always are with people. Stop being with placeholders. Stop being with the local Steve because he's a nice man, but you're not attracted to him. Stop doing all this temporary, selfish.
Don't forget boring Betty. Don't forget boring Betty.
All these things. Stop doing this selfish choosing and really say to yourself, does this person fit my life? Do they build within? Can we build together? If you have that, you have a chance of surviving the nudges and the pushes, and those things come because we're already halfway out the door when we say I do. So get with the right kind of person so that you'll have somebody to build with, and you'll have at least a fighting chance. That's all.
And not somebody with wet diapers. Not somebody with wet diapers.
Yeah, sure.
And dry plants.
Right, dry pay, dry.
Right.
Dry depends, honey. Dry your own depends.
Yeah, please. All right, Peacock, the close is on out here.
So you guys, look, it's been incredible this evening, incredible dialogue. You guys were awesome. We appreciate you guys taking time out of your busy schedule. We know the most valuable commodity that we have is time, so we don't take for granted your time. So we have a 30-second commercial that we do when people are new to the show or haven't had an opportunity to present their product or service. So we're going to start with Dr. Williams. 30-second commercial. Tell us who you are, how they can connect with you, and what services you provide.
Dr. Tiffany Williams, Masterpiece Counseling Services. I provide therapy services. You can reach me at www.masterpeacecounselingservices.com. That is MASTERPEACE, helping you be the master of your peace. I also have another website, www.tiffany.epiphany.com, TIFFANIE. EPIPHANY.com, and that is where you can learn about all of the wonderful things I am doing now. My book is coming out soon. I'm having a book launch party. You'll learn about the nonprofit that I started. So all things Tiffany, you will find out on that website.
Awesome.
Nice,
So
nice.
Mitchell, 30 seconds. So Mitchell, tell us what you're up to.
I am up to these days. I'm kind of doing some business coaching. So I don't have my website up for that, but the business is called Dream Release. And I also do real estate. So just kind of, trying to help small businesses here in Jacksonville with their marketing, better branding, different things like that, holding mastermind classes. But you can always reach me on Facebook, the Mitchell Pratcher. You can always reach me for my real estate, and on Instagram is tpratch81.
Awesome. Chris, talk to us. What you up to?
I'm a husbander.
Okay,
go ahead.
All right.
But
just focus on the family. Focus on the family.
I support my wife so much, and she's an amazing person. And
awesome.
I look at you, Ms. P Coffee, and y'all are like sisters. I'm like, man.
Oh man, we are the Goon Squad.
I met her shouting in church. I met you shouting in church.
Look, man,
that's how I met you.
Go way back. We used to do theater together. Remember when we did that before? Yeah. So we have a long history together. And Tiffany's mom and Tiffany and I, we just family by default. So I mean, I lived in Jacksonville for 20 years. So that's where my adult roots are planted for the most part, was in Duval County. So I'm extremely familiar with that region. Dee, what are you up to? Tell us what you're up to.
I'm up to, I work at a hospital. I'm an empty nester. I love to travel. I do my little Facebook thing. It's called Monday Morning Music Moments. I do that on Monday mornings. I sing and give a little bit of information about music. And it's just to uplift the people. It's all genres of music. And then on Thursday mornings on Facebook, I sing and I do a top 10 countdown.
Oh,
that's right.
Uplift the people and give them a little information and background about music. I love music, and that's what I do. That's my thing. And I'm doing some other things, but that's my main thing right now.
Awesome. All right. Mr. Dixon, what you got going over there in Chicago, in Chi-Town, Mr. Dixon?
Oh, man. So this weekend I'll be in New York with Dr. Cheryl at the What a Man Wants conference. But then Monday I'll be back here to do my weekly show, Unique Perspectives, Love Talk Radio. I'm in the works of working on my topic, so I can't say it yet. But nonetheless, it's every Monday night at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. It's only for an hour, but we come on and we try to kind of stay sort of very similar. We have very similar styles. We just have different setups, but very similar. Relationship, health, wealth, and that type of thing. So it's cool.
Awesome. And if you guys are in the Texas area, I write insurance for life, health, auto, homeowners, renters, you name it, I write it. I am an insurance person. So, I'm always on the move and always going. So you guys, hey, you don't have to come to me. I can come to you. So hit me up, P Coffee Brown. Same on Facebook, same on Instagram, same on Twitter. I'm working on a couple of other projects, getting ready to actually roll out another show. But we're working on it now. I'm collaborating with some people to work on another show. So it's super, super excited about that. It's going to be called Thought-Filled Thursdays. So it's going to be interesting. So it's going to be a different kind of concept, different kind of idea, but we're working on it, getting it all marketed and strategized and all that good stuff. And of course, we'll be working on some projects, Charles and I, to get these shows into actual live segments. We're working on that now. So we'll be coming to a city near you with some live segments, some live interactions, really kind of connecting with you guys again for we can do these public environments. It's going to be awesome, awesome, awesome going forward. But thank you guys again for your time, your energy. Please, please, please let us know, Charles and I, if there's anything we can do to support your business where you are, and we will do what we can to make sure that you guys get what you need. Congratulations again, Dr. Tiffany. Much love. Congratulations on your book release, August the 3rd, right?
Yes.
All right, August the 3rd in Dubai. You guys don't want to miss that. So until next week, peace, love, and soul.
All right. Take care. Take care, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everybody.
All right.
Have a good night.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Good
All
night.
right. Good night.
Night.
Take care. Bye, D.